All right, so we're here with A.E.Van Fleet. This is the little gallery in San Bernardino. I just wanted to introduce A.E. Van Fleet. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, good, good. All right. Would you prefer me to call you A.E. Van Fleet or
You can just call me Alan. Alan is
Alan?
fine. Yeah,
Alan is perfect.
yeah.
All
My name
right.
is just kind of long, so I chose to abbreviate it, and that's just that reason why.
Yeah, right on, right on. Sounds awesome. Alrighty. So, Alan, what since the last time you've showcased over at the little gallery till present, what has there been projects you've been working on? What have you been working on? Whether it's in the
Yeah.
conceptual, work in progress, completed phase.
I actually, as of today, I have five new pieces, so I've been working
Cool.
on those. I was planning on taking a trip in April for my birthday, but that obviously didn't happen. So
Yes.
when I got back, I was planning to work on those pieces, so I just started working on them sooner than what
Okay.
I had planned. So I had already planned those pieces out. I have maybe two more I'll do this year, and
Okay.
then
Cool.
I try and watch kind of everything, my budget, how much time,
All right.
and everything. So like I try and kind of give myself a goal every year to try and meet, and then
That's pretty
so
smart. That's a good way to kind of keep yourself in check, keep your art moving, is to set goals. That's a good way to
yeah.
do that.
So that's kind of just what I'm trying to just fulfill those goals, which will probably be done sooner than anticipated. So I might be able to squeeze in a couple more, depending on the budget. That's always the big thing, right? Is the budget. So that I'm looking forward to that, and I've got one more piece to photograph, and I'll have this first little group done. So.
Right on. The group that you're working on, is there any concept behind it? What inspired you to work on the project?
Well, this project is part of my Prima Materia series of, I call them sculptures, I guess. Um, and this part of the series, there's different groups within the series, and the series is very large. And I have a lot of the pieces planned out, but I haven't like put them together yet. That's kind of the neat thing about my artwork is they kind of function like recipes that I can work on without having the materials. So I can do those parallel to one another. So I can kind of get some of the work done, the conceptual work done, and then go find the materials for it. So, um, so with that, I I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought.
No, that's quite right. That's quite right. And that's actually pretty cool. That's how you kind of work with that, as in you start kind of doing what you can do, and then once a budget allows, you then move on to progressing the artwork even more so. Right
Right.
on.
So I'm always working on it, different ones in different stages. So when I'm not able to actually make it, I'm thinking about, oh, I have this idea for this piece. How can I do that? So I guess I'm back to the question, and I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good.
This part of the series is about the four directions. So I tend to kind of do each theme of my series has something to do with like magic, not like a top hat and a rabbit magic, but like mysticism and witchcraft. I've been very influenced by that ever since I think I was a kid.
Huh.
Um,
How'd you?
so
If I'm sorry, I don't mean to catch you, but that's interesting. How did you get influenced by that? Like, how did you get exposed to it? Was it like a family
Well,
member or friends?
it starts very innocent. I think it starts very innocent for me. Like I was thinking about it today actually, and there was something about being really young and seeing Sleeping Beauty and seeing that dress change color. And
Uh-huh.
there was something about you know, like stuff like Cinderella or things transforming into other things. Like I loved Transformers as a kid, you know. So this
Yes,
idea that
very awesome.
things can change and they can be, you know, otherworldly. Like I was always drawn to that as a kid, you know. So because I was drawn to those things, I also was drawn to the things that inspired those things. So with this piece or with this part of the series, it's the four directions, but they're actually inspired by the Japanese anime Digimon, which
Oh
is kind of
yeah,
you wouldn't think about that being inspired by that, but
yeah,
there are certain
interesting.
characters from there that are inspired from um, I guess you call them they're called the beasts of the four directions in Chinese mythology. So
Oh,
without learning about Digimon and then not having that exposure to this other thing, I wouldn't have learned about that at all. You know, so
yeah,
like so that kind of, you know, as I kind of, you know, used, you know, pop culture and
mm,
magic in this kind of weird way, I that's kind of how I get inspired. You know, like I did a
yeah.
series on all the planets that was inspired by Sailor Moon.
Right on.
And, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, how the magic, you know, what's the magic that kind of inspired it. And I guess with these pieces, trying to get these materials together, I'm trying to kind of recreate that magic in kind of, you know, in a
Yeah.
kind of, you know, I guess artistic and slightly philosophical way. So the four directions, north, south, east, west, but in Chinese mythology, you have the center as a direction. So
Oh,
in
that's
mine, we have
interesting.
five directions. And the fifth direction is actually made up of one of the elements of the other four, if that makes sense. So
Huh,
one element from each, from north, south, east, west, is actually an element in the center. So
got you. It's
they
kind of
kind of,
like a pie, kind of, huh?
yeah,
There's
so
like a
like,
center radius that we're in.
yeah, that breaks out those
Um,
quadrants basically. And that's kind of
yeah.
how they divided the sky. And they
Huh.
chose four animals to do that, which was the west was the white tiger, the north was the black tortoise, the east was the blue dragon, and the south was the red bird or the phoenix.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
so just playing off that, trying
Yeah.
to kind of, you know, just capture whatever magic that captured in me, you know, that captured in me,
Yeah.
you know. So that's kind of the gist of it. So, you know, as this gets released, I'll start to release those over, you know, like 5 weeks or so, and then
Do you have like
the different materials, and which I think is neat because it's. I mean, I think about, you know, the materials and how they're gonna be together, but it's never really, I never can really, you know, see it until it's actually together. So it's a surprise to me too once I kind of get everything dialed in, you know. So
yeah,
it's kind of an unveiling, you know, to me too. It's kind of even the process
yeah.
of doing it is kind of magical, I guess, is what I'm kind of getting to.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely you could feel that through your descriptions of it. Like you say, you know, you kind of start working with these, I guess for a lack of a better word, ingredients, and then you start figuring out. It seems like you kind of start figuring out like what will go, what will bring the magic, what won't, and then maybe you adjust accordingly. If that's
Yeah.
correct to the understanding.
Yeah, and I have a lot of books I refer to pick my materials. They're you know, there are books on witchcraft, mysticism, crystals. I mean, just a variety of things that you know, um, that's why I choose to, you know, to select that item because I'm selecting it for those magical properties that I'm researching. So
Got
that's
you.
always kind of fun and hard.
Yeah,
I mean, you
that
have
I can see
to.
that.
It's become a material language, right? So it's like each material kind of has come to mean something, you know, over time, over the more pieces I use it with, you know. So the more I use it, the more like it becomes fleshed out, and then I'll use it again for that very reason, you know. So um,
That's
now that
cool.
I have so many pieces, they start to kind of talk to one another, which is an interesting kind of thing
Yeah.
because you you can group them by color. You could group them by like masculine or feminine. Or, there's so many different ways to look at them once you see them all. And I've got a lot, and I
Yeah,
don't
if you,
remember.
yeah, I would
Got at least
definitely.
30 of them. So I mean, probably 30, close to 30.
Wow, did you foresee that happening? All the pieces would be able to interact, like you said, if you want to group them by color, by material, by did you foresee that happening
Um,
in your projects, or was that something that
I
developed?
didn't initially, but when I started building the recipes, 30 may be a little much. Maybe more like 20. I don't know. I don't keep track because it's not useful to me.
Right, right.
It's not about keeping track. So I have to tally them up to get a number, but I have about 90 recipes.
Ah,
So
I like how
that's kind of the
you
personal
curate this.
challenge, is to see it through until I don't have anything else I can do, or I run out of room. That's the other issue. Like, I don't have a lot of room. They're small, which is nice, but
Right.
that's kind of the rules, is try and get as many as you can without. Once the closet's filled, you can't do anymore. You got to figure out what to do after that.
Right on. Yes, I was having a peek at your website, and I mean, I like what I saw. It definitely is pretty awesome. I like the white uh, squares with the glass and the material or
They're
whatever.
actually plastic, and it's like a cellophane membrane, so it stretches over the
Huh.
material.
Interesting.
They
How do
work
you?
really well. I was experimenting with resin for a while, and I just wasn't very good at casting the fumes and managing that. It was just a lot to manage in an apartment. so um, so the frames were kind of, I found those online, and those were kind of like the solution to everything. Once
Got
I
you.
found those, everything, because I was working on the recipes, but I didn't have a way to display them. I was like, I wish I could find a frame, and then I just finally found one, and that's kind of how I treat them, as a frame, like,
Huh.
the
The frame, is it something that you said you found it? So is it like something that you've seen at a store and you're able to purchase it online if need to be,
yeah,
or continue to go
it's
back?
for like collectible coins, basically. You can
Gotcha. Huh.
sandwich that coin in there, but is the rules for my pieces are, it's just got to fit in there somehow, like
Yeah.
without breaking it. So I've been able to kind of get creative. Stuff that's really fine though, I usually put like in a bottle and then put the bottle in the frame. So because if it's really fine, it'll all just sink to the bottom, and you can't really
Interesting.
do it. So each material, I kind of have to go about a little bit different way. It usually works
Yeah.
99% of the time, but I do have that, 0.1% that I have to kind of take into account sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were a lifesaver. I mean, I didn't want them to be the cornerstone like that, but like I needed something kind of innovative to
Yeah.
display it. So, and they also use it for jewelry and stuff. I've seen them like in the mall and stuff too. So,
Right
um,
on.
and that it doesn't bother me either. Like, I feel like they do more good than they do harm with that. So I feel like I'm happy with them as long as they continue to make them. We're in business. So.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's for sure. I'm sure if that ever happens, you're ah.
Got other suppliers, so it's okay. I'm always looking. I always have a backup plan, so it won't. I'll at least be able to finish the thought. And if something happens and I don't get to continue the series,
Have a
I give
backup
it.
on.
I'll shelve it at least until I can get more. Like, I won't give up on it. It just I may take a hiatus from it or something. So.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool that you do that because I don't know. Sometimes one could perceive that, oh, it's not going well, or I'm stuck at a block, like that's it for this project, and hang it up on the shelf and then forget about it. But just like you were saying, when you get to those points, you put it up on the shelf and you're like, I'm not forgetting about you. It's just brewing just a little bit. This
Right,
is what it
right.
gets. That's really
And
cool.
I think sometimes, like, I mean, I set goals, but I have to be flexible with myself, you know, and
Yeah,
you know, sometimes, you know, when you get making stuff, you know, either you get caught in the zone, or you 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 kind of get your expectation of, you know, what it needs to be, and sometimes you're just fighting yourself when you do that, and you have to just, you know, you just need time to accept the fact that that's the way it needs to be, and you'll find a
huh,
solution. So, I mean,
yeah,
I've been very frustrated at times with my art. I mean, not recently, but at times, I mean, in my life. But um, I've just learned that, you know, I've got to kind of be flexible with myself. The more limits I impose on myself, the less, you know, creative I'm able to be. So I just
yeah.
kind of gotta, like, you know, take it
Kind of
easy on
let it just
myself.
go. That's a it's a, you know what you point out something that I find interesting because that is something that as in being hard on myself. I look at like right because I do photography, so I look at my photographs, and I do get to stuck in that narrow alleyway where it's like, no, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like this. But like you said, you know, it's something to be learned with to be flexible and let it. Maybe that's just how it should be. Maybe that's like the life of the
Yeah,
artwork.
and maybe take it a step further and lean into it, you know, like, you know, like sometimes we have happy accidents, but it's
Yeah,
another
by
thing
myself.
to try and recreate that. And I think something about with this series, since it's large and it's kind of repetitive. I mean, it's very kind of visually, when you have all those frames together, it's kind of very visually repetitive. But like but with every one, I'm you know, I'm trying to, within those limits, I'm really trying to, you know, push everyone, you know, being
Yeah,
very thoughtful at the same time, you know. So I think it's just a balance. Like, you can still have it your way, but you know, the way in your head and the way of the world are kind of, you know,
true.
there's always that
This
veil.
balance.
It's sometimes
Yeah.
it's a brick wall, and sometimes you can see through it, but like, it's still very difficult to penetrate it and kind of get clarity sometimes. So I think you just got to stick with it too, you know, like, not every piece is my favorite piece. I mean, I love all my pieces kind of like my kids,
Right.
but like, there's some pieces that I can just look at and say this one, and critically is just more successful for whatever reason, color or form or whatever, you know, and I just have to be okay with that too, you know, like, I with what I'm doing, you kind of have to surrender a lot to the material. So you have to, the shape it's in, you know, I don't get,
Yeah.
I mean, I get to choose kind of, but when I get
Yeah.
a stone and I buy it online, I have no idea what it looks like before I get it. So I have to buy like two or three. And then I
Yeah.
get a choice of the best one. So like, I have to be
Huh.
really, it's taught me to kind of be more flexible with things, because you know, it's just counterproductive to making when you're frustrated, you know, about things.
Very true. It's very hard to see the vision when you are frustrated
Mm.
because you're frustrated. You're like, why isn't it working?
Or you want to, because it should be, there should be some enjoyment in it, like, because
Yeah,
that's why you should do it, you know, like, I
I
mean,
definitely
yeah,
agree
like,
with that.
you know, I know that, you know, that some people, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, that, you know, some people, you know, need to hustle and do, you know, do what they, you know, do what they got to do, you know,
Yeah,
to make their living and everything. But I would still hope that at least you would have some part of your practice that's a little bit for yourself.
very true.
And that's what I had to give myself, that I wasn't giving myself that when I was starting this series, and now I've kind of come to the place where, like, I have my goals and I have what I'm doing, and like, I'm not looking at what, you know, X,
Yeah,
Y, and Z is doing. I have my
yeah,
thing, and I've just got my routine down, and I'm just,
yeah.
I think
Like you
it's good.
said, you know, there's cool points that you pointed out. It reminds me of a professor over at my junior college that I was at, Citrus College, where she said, you know, talked about the starving artist topic, if you want to say. And her thing was, how hard do you want to work at your art? You know, how hard do you want to work at it? You know, so that always stuck with me. And going how you mentioned about art having some type of enjoyment when you're creating it. You know, It reminds me of an internship that I was at where that's all he did. All the owner of the company, all he did was he would set meetings. He would just work on his company. But to him, some people would say, "You're a workaholic," right? But to him, he was like, "Well, no, not really. Like I'm enjoying what I'm doing, you know." So it is true, like you said, you know, to have some type of enjoyment. I think that will allow you to keep pursuing down that path. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's very strong point for up and coming artists that are still in high school. You know, considering whether they should pursue an art career or not. I
Mm-hmm.
think what you just had mentioned is definitely could be a clarity for them.
Yeah, and I guess I would also say towards that is don't be afraid to change. I've changed so much. It seems like, you know, I started as a graphic designer, and then I started in
Uh-huh.
photography, and then I wasn't very good at it. And then so I was like, well, I'm gonna go paint. And then I painted, and then I got into the MFA program as a painter, painted 1 quarter, and was like, I'm not painting anymore. I'm doing
Oh,
assemblage work now. And then I graduated with assemblage work, and then now I'm doing the found art stuff. So like I have
wow.
skipped around, and now I'm thinking about painting again. I don't know why, but
That's all right.
something
That's how
about
it
that
goes.
it's seducing me. I'm running out of distractions from COVID. That's the thing, you know. Like even even my art isn't a full time distraction from some of this stuff. So, and I think a distraction is good. So I'm trying to just lean into that kind of desire instead of saying, well, I'm making this now. I'm just saying, well, I can I can get, you know, my materials out and I can still make that. Like it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to mean anything unless I make it something, you know, like
True.
so just make and you know, sometimes and this is something that Andrew always told me, like, and I haven't done it and I haven't thought to do it until now, just to make for the sake of making, right? Like
True.
the
True.
recipes are these calculated, you know, formulaic, spend a lot of
True.
time on it, but you know, painting is more, you know, whimsical. So it might be good for me to do something like that. So you just kind of gotta,
Sure.
like I said, be flexible and try not, because the more you limit yourself, you're digging a hole for yourself. You know, you get yourself into
Yeah.
that rut, and you're not happy with
Yeah.
anything you do.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's as an artist, that could be a bit of a bummer to be in that area, you know, because like you said, you don't know what to do and you're just frustrated. And it's like take a step back, maybe take a break from that, and maybe work on another project. You
Yeah,
know,
or read, or even, you know,
uh,
pollute your mind a little with some TV or so. Like you
yes,
can't always focus so intensely on one thing and expect. That's kind of the definition of
true.
insanity, you know, expecting, you know, the same thing.
Yes,
But yeah, so it's like
it's yeah,
you're driving
expecting
yourself
something
nuts.
different.
So
Yeah,
you need to have another experience in order to break that block or whatever it is.
yes, and
Something will
what's
inform you eventually. You know,
yes.
a dream, your mom, you know, someone will give you something and it'll click. But it's just sometimes you got to be patient and kind of be on the look for it, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
the
and
mind of an
that's just been my
artist.
experience. Like I'm so, you know, inspired by video games and anime, and you know, like so and then I'm looking at to the things that inspire that, and it's kind of like I get this kind of magnified inspiration, you know, because I go and I look things up, and I'm like, oh, that's because, you know, they're doing this because they're making this reference. Oh, I get that, you know.
Yeah,
So there's, you know, little things can really, you know, change, you know, how you look at things,
very true.
or ask questions. It's just how you experience them. If you kind of consciously looking for those while you're experiencing, and
Yes, that is kind of keeping an open mind to, like you said, your experiences. Because maybe that time off reading this book will solve the answer for this project, you know, or it could spin into a different, totally another project that's like, whoa, okay, cool. I have this other project that, okay, you know, it's understand, so it's gonna grow. But now I have this idea, and I can work on that, and maybe even through that project, you can then finish up another project.
right. It's
Yeah,
just, Yeah, I mean everything is fluid. It's not set in stone. So you can move and you can be two places at once. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not
Be
we don't
like
have to
water,
deal with the
right?
physics of reality in art. You know,
No.
we can theoretically and conceptually be two places at once. And we're people. We have more than one idea, so it's just natural.
Yeah.
You know, so
So
I think
it
that's
seems like you tend to. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you get like your inspiration from like everything that you engage with. Is that
yeah,
okay
the
to
things that
say?
the things that tug at my heart or make me smile or make me cry or it's I have a raw visceral response to it. Like, I mean, the first thing I have to go to is like Sailor Moon. Like, I started watching that when I was in the 8th grade. I remember the day, the time. I remember being in tears. Like, it elicited such an emotional response to me because the story was so good to me, and it just touched me. And that has, I was in the 8th grade. That was 1998. That
Yes.
inspiration has propelled me. I'm 36 now. So, like,
Wow.
from being like 14, 15 years old,
Yeah.
that has made that big of an impact on my life. So for it
Yeah.
not to come out in my work somehow, like,
It
I mean,
has
that's
to,
just like a
you know.
no-brainer. Like, those are the things
Yes.
that taught me about the world in a very interesting way. So I can't, by making art about them and being inspired about them, I kind of in turn honor them in a way. You know what I mean?
That's pretty cool. 'Cause when you watch an anime show versus like, let's say, we watch a TV show like Doug, or I'm not sure what other cartoon shows are out there
I like
that
Doug.
are produced. Yeah, Doug was cool.
Doug
That's
was
for sure. Doug
good.
was cool, you know. But I tend to find that with the even with the anime that I watch, there's a lot of more like you say deeper philosophical ideas that get embedded into the storyline. Maybe it'll be like a line that someone says, and you're just like, I never thought about that. Hmm. You know, anime is pretty influential.
Well,
Just like yourself, I
I think
do
it's a
notice it.
mythical medium. Cartoons are just mythic.
That's
They're
true.
they're just naturally that way. Superman, Hercules. Like they're just. I think they're naturally that way. And when you have an anime, something like that, or a comic or something like that, you can do a little bit more than what you can do with reality.
That's
So
true.
there's this kind of dream kind of aspect to it too. And that even kind of goes back. I can even take it back to art history if you want me to kind of the
Go
ukiyo-e
for it.
painting,
Yes.
the paintings of the floating world kind of thing, this kind of dream like area where you could explore these different kind of ideas, that you don't get to in reality. So
That's very
I think
true.
that's the big part of it. But just like anime and movies, like I think the key thing here is empathy. Is that you feel empathy for what's happening to the people or the characters and what you're watching. And I'm a very empathetic person. So I just when there's a good story and there's a good set of characters, like I just attach myself to them and I pick them apart and I obsess about them because they've touched me. And I think everyone has felt that about some
Right.
kind of thing. But I
I
think
agree. That's
just
for sure.
with me, it's just really, really strong. And
Yeah.
that's just how I have to kind of deal with it, I guess, in a way. It inspires me to make. I don't know why. It just kind of is.
That's just how you are. Like you do say, people will find, even with movies or when you're reading a book, to empathize with either the main character or one of the characters,
Yeah.
and in return, maybe it'll even show them a little bit of themselves back,
Hmm.
onto them.
You feel a connection, and you feel it with something that it's funny. You feel it that's something that isn't really real, and that's kind of magic to me. Like, I'm able to elicit this response from you. Like, I'm able to make you bawl like a baby, like, or I'm able to make you like grin like from cheek to cheek. Like, that's kind of that's where the magic is for me. Like what about that does that? Do I need to go find everything that's associated with the moon to figure that out? That's kind of the premise, I guess. Do I need to find all
That's
the
cool.
magical elements to try to figure out what that is, you know, that makes me
Yeah.
feel that way about it? I know, I mean, it's not the most profound thing, but I mean, I think it is about that empathy that I feel, and trying that magic, considering that magic and trying to figure out in the
Keep it
real world how that
in the
works.
art.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
for
just kind of
sure.
the way it all fell
You're like
on the
a
floor.
you're like a magician, man. You're definitely as like you're a magician, and your art is spreading the magic to when people look at it and they get those responses that you see, like, oh, that's cool, and you start seeing them uh, uh,
Yeah, that's what I
interact,
hope.
right?
I mean, you hope that, but you also want other people to have their experience of it too. So I think that, you know, like this is, at least this series is kind of good for that, because it's really about, you know, your interpretation of what you're seeing, the materials, and that's all you get. So there's nothing, there's no
It's
outside anything else
it's
to dilute it.
so the audience, the viewer, that's all they have to
Yeah.
interpret to understand about the piece is just like you said, the visuals. That's really
So it's
cool.
like they're kind of looking for the magic in between the items too. You know, they're trying to figure out why they're important, you know, and and I'm kind of figuring out, you know, why, you know, the inspiration is important. So it's kind of like we're on this little journey together in a weird way, like trying to
It's really
figure that
cool.
out. But it's taken me a while to kind of understand that too. Um, I haven't done like a show or an interview, I don't think, since the show at the gallery in San Bernardino. I've been kind of focused on just creating right now, and then trying to figure out, because I kind of moved right when my show was going up. I moved from San Bernardino to Fullerton, so now I'm out
That seems
here
like a
trying to
lot.
figure out, you know, that kind of scene, which is a little bit different, and kind of questioning, you know, do I, do I really want to do this? What should I be focused on? What's my priority? And I decided that making would be that priority.
I
Um,
agree.
so I think that's the other thing too is, I was kind of maybe getting a little caught up with, I needed to be in so many shows, or I needed to do this and or this or that, and I think that's a good idea, but you can't let that dictate what you're making and when you make it and everything. Like
It's
I
very good to hear. You know,
I think, I mean, I'm in a different situation than some artists where, you know, I mean, I'm using my skills as an artist, as a graphic designer for my work, but I don't have to sell anything, you know, to make my living, you know. So it's a little bit different, you know. I may have some freedoms that, you know, other artists, excuse me, may not, you know, may not have in that respect. So I think that's important to note. There are a lot of different types of artists, and I'm a very strange one, to say the least.
that's right. Some of the strange ones are
I'm
the
very
best ones.
fortunate, but I'm very eccentric, I think, a little bit too. Just
No, that's good. That's good.
yeah.
You had mentioned series. How many? Do you know how many series you've produced so
Let's
far?
see. Well, I have groups. I'm kind of developing the terminology as I go, and I guess right now what I'm calling these groups are chapters, like in a
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
And the book is the whole series. So the chapters I've got done are the planets, which are the sun and the moon, and then all the planets minus Earth, because we're on the Earth. So I didn't feel like that was weird.
Okay. Yeah.
And then let's see, I've got
If
the
you got
fourth.
some to show, you could go ahead and go
Oh
grab
no,
them.
I don't. It's kind of hard for them to show.
Okay.
Maybe we can show some photos or something
Oh yeah, totally.
over the recording, maybe, or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, I wasn't anticipating showing any, but I've got planets. I've got the elements, earth, fire, wind, and water. I've got things that I call abstractions. So they're kind of like ideas, like courage or love or hope, things like that. I've got several of those. And then I've got the directions. And then up and coming things that I've got going on, I've got a chapter on nature. So it'll have things like levin, which is a word for lightning.
Oh, huh.
So
What's the origin of that word?
That levin, well, the reason I'm using that word is because I'm trying to make a reference to the inspiration of it. So I think it's actually I'm not sure the origin of the word, but the levin refers to lightning. The only reason I know that is because of a game that I play, Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, right on.
On that, so that introduced me to that word. I don't remember the etymology of it off the top of my head.
Right on.
But it taught me, that's what that is. So
that's
I think
really
they refer
cool.
to him as the Lord of the Levin, so like the Lord of Lightning. And I just thought that was more creative than to just say something like lightning. So and it made a reference also, without going too far, and
And it's also a reference of you and what you like. Because I do like Final Fantasy as well. I had a little struggle with some of the past ones. I've never done 14. 14 I haven't done. I'm on 15 right now. But the 11, correct me if I'm wrong, in the mythology of Final Fantasy, Leviathan, is that the...
Leviathan
is that water?
Typically in Final Fantasy is water. So
okay.
Levin is actually Ramuh.
Okay.
He's like an old wizard-looking guy with a really large beard and a staff.
He was in Final Fantasy
kind of like
7 as well, right? Okay, 7, I remember him in 7.
He's a classic Final Fantasy summon. Okay. So he's in almost all the Final Fantasies. Yeah.
That's really cool. That I just think that's really cool that where you pull your creativity, your inspirations from. Because me too, I also grew up on Sailor Moon. Fun fact about that: when I was a kid, because I was 5 or 6 years younger than you. So when you were in 8th grade, I was in 2nd grade. So I was very, you're innocent. Anyway, what I'm saying is with Sailor Moon, I had a crush on Sailor Moon at that time, and my family tends to pick on me or my cousins, So I do remember Sailor Moon, and I don't know if you remember Ronin Warriors, but some of these.
Yes, I do.
I remember Digimon when Digimon came out.
Yeah.
So it's really adhering to me because as a kid, as a little guy, 2nd, 1st grader, these are shows that I enjoyed, that I would wake up and watch in the morning, getting ready for school. I didn't have cable, so it would be on channel 13. And so I think that's really cool as an example of allowing pretty much like your whole world influence you, not just one aspect. Like, oh, I want to do political work and just allowing only politics. Maybe you could skew in politics with this world, or maybe this world, or this interest. I like that you do not close yourself off to all your influences, all your options. Like, okay, let's have a look. I think that's a really cool way to work.
Even my paintings in early college, like all the titles were songs, So it's like, so it's I don't want to say I'm frustrated, but it's disheartening sometimes to hear some critique that pop culture can't be meaningful. I mean, it's what you put into. It's like anything. It's what you put into it, And I'm just a very curious person. I'm not ever really satisfied with just what I'm given. Like I have to go research it, and I have to I have to find out the origin of that. And so maybe I'm a special case, but I just, I do think it's more than just, junk culture or something even benign. I think, and even if we just go back to the point, and it helps us empathize with other people. I think nowadays, more than ever, that's a skill that everyone needs.
Yes, more now than ever. That's for sure.
If that flourish that quality in me, if that, helped, instill that quality in me, then I think that it can do that for other people too. And I think people think magically about that kind of part of their life, you know.
Yes.
When you're
Yeah.
that age and you wake
Yes.
up and you look forward to that, and
Yes.
like that's magic. So like it
That
for
is.
me, it's a no-brainer to mix the two, but like
Yeah.
it's not exactly intuitive at the same time.
It's true. Well, I do relate with that magic. I remember, like I said, in the morning I had the TV shows, and the magic for me was also in the afternoon when I come home from school. I forgot what time we coming on, but the Batman the animated series, that was my show. I'd be like, all right, I gotta watch this. Then after that, I'm doing my homework. I promise, you know. And like you said, you're only a kid for so long, and as you grow up, experiences and you experience things, you have different relationships with people. You start just kind of developing in a certain way. And I wonder if we tend to lose that magic along the way. I wonder if some people do, and maybe some people are more in line with it, you know?
I
Just a
think
fun thought.
I think that's true. I think some people are and some people are. I mean, I still am. As a 36-year-old man, I'm very into,
There you
with that.
go,
I mean,
man.
I'm kind of OG a little bit when it comes to, the titles that I like of anime. Everything is old and from the 90s, but that's okay.
Yes, it is okay.
That's when everything was great. Not to say that there's not great stuff now, but that's when it was, the golden age. But
Right, you have
yeah, I
Trigun,
think
you have Cowboy Bebop, all those
yeah,
other
yeah,
ones. Yeah, I
yeah.
definitely understand.
So like, so I guess the hope, I guess, for it is that maybe, with me trying to figure out, you know, what that magic is in a weird way, and people see me with these kind of experiments, almost these kind of ingredients, trying to figure out what that is, like they can kind of rediscover that for themselves a little bit,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know.
There is definitely when I saw your work, there is something magical. I don't know if it's just the sculpture itself, but even because even in the presentation of it, meaning the imagery of it, that could also make it or hurt it. And the way how you present it on your website, even with the design of the website on top of it as well, can make it or hurt it. Just everything that I've seen on the website, there is some type of magic to it. Like you shot it in a way because that's reflective material, which is hard, right? And you have to figure out how to shoot it and photograph it. And the way how you photographed it, it definitely you start wondering how is that material floating in there? Like how is it floating? Because I'm looking at it, I'm looking for reflections. Me being solely coming from a primary photography medium, I look for those things, right? And I'm looking at your photographs, and I don't see no reflection. I don't see anything that
Well,
lets me know
I'm
that
sure
there's
I've got
glass right
some.
there. I haven't seen it at least,
um, Andrew
So
has helped me immensely with my photography over the years, and
yes, Andrew's yeah,
I,
Andrew's really good at
with
that.
photography, it's true that you have to invest in some equipment, which my little lighting thing
And
has. So I
it
mean,
works, it works, you
it
know?
it works perfectly for me. I've kind of got it figured out. I mean, I'm a designer, so I know how to, tone a photo and get that all, dialed in and everything. So that part's not hard. But yeah, that was probably the most difficult thing I had to learn about this, um, for this series, was how to photograph it and
Yeah.
how to install them. Like, because I'd never done anything quite this
Nice.
precise, with
How
shells
was
and stuff.
how
So
was that? How was the installment process? How did you feel about it? Was it like a bit
I'm always
overwhelming?
I'm always stressed about it. I just I'm a perfectionist, which you probably can tell. But I just like everything to be precise, and it's just a challenge for me to keep track of the math and the measurements and make sure everything is, where it needs to be. And then when you get it, you think right and it's visually off. You're just like, okay, now I have to deviate, and that, so that just kind of
Yeah.
messes, just with that side of me a little bit. it's just kind of nerve-wracking. But like I've done it a couple times now, so I think I'm good.
Right
Someone
on.
were like, "Oh, we would need you to install." I'd be like, "Okay, I think I can handle that."
Is there
I need my boyfriend to come help me because I need, you know, four hands. But
that'd be awesome if we were able to grow, you know, two extra hands
that
than
would be
me.
awesome. Kind of like
But
Mortal Kombat. That would be great.
right, grew from there.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be really great.
When you're designing things, do you think about the installment process afterwards? Or is that something that when you cross that bridge is when you cross it and then you solve it right there and there?
Well, what's nice is I only had to think about the installment once because they're, you know, they're kind of repetitive pieces. You know, they're and they're intentionally that way. But it the thing that gets tricky is just, you know, trying to get, you know, your shelves, you know, in a nice line, or if you're going to do, you know, two sets, getting all of that visually in line. So each install is kind of different, but it's not. It's still the shelf. I was trying to be smart about it, and I just got a shelf that is just basic at Home Depot. So I just buy them when I need them.
Okay.
You know, so I was just trying to be like, how can I, you know, be cost effective and space effective and not have, you know, a shit ton of shelves everywhere, you know. So that
Yes,
was
yeah,
kind of my idea. So we'll continue that, and then if something happens and we have to do something different, then we'll just cross that bridge when we get there. But I do think about the installation, and I think that comes from like all my assemblage work and my installation work I did in grad school. I'm very cognizant of like, how is this going to be displayed? Like, and I suffered over that a lot when I was thinking about, you know, what, you know, how this series was going to take shape. Like the presentation was important to me, and the installation and how it contributed to the presentation. So I wanted to be very basic and not take away, you know, anything from the piece. So that was just simple. Yeah.
For you, do you find the presentation to be just as important as the fabrication of the project?
I think so. I think so. There's different things, you know, like when I photograph it, I have, you know, really good light. Sometimes I don't have a great light in the gallery, and you know that can kind of bug me. But I mean, it's hit or miss, you know, sometimes. But you know, you know, those frames are see through. So if we've got a wall with color, or we have a white wall, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna work. I mean, a white wall would be, you know, the best, and that's usually what you have. So I mean, I feel like I looked at it from a lot of different angles and kind of came out with the best decision for me. And but I do think it's really important because I feel like a bad presentation can, you know, deter from not only the meaning of your piece but the potency, you know, depending on what it is. You know, if you have a political piece or you know, an advocacy piece, you know, the presentation is critical, you know. So
yes, I definitely agree.
Yeah, so I would have to say that they're both important. They're both worth the same amount of thought.
Keep both in consideration.
Yeah.
When you're in the conceptualizing phase, do you? Because for me, I write things down. I have a notebook that I have. Do you have something similar, or how does the conceptual phase work for you?
Yeah, I used to have a bunch of spreadsheets, and I would have just a lot of spreadsheets, and I would put them all in one spreadsheet with different tabs. And then one day I stumbled upon this thing, this service that it's free. It connects to your Google spreadsheets, and it turns your spreadsheets into an app. So I use an app to manage all that now. It manages my inventory. That's how I calculate my prices for my work, what's in my inventory, how much it costs. And then I also track all the recipes there too. So I can do everything all the business part of my artwork with this program that turns all my spreadsheets into an app and lets me kind of do data entry. And then it just puts it in the spreadsheet and reads the spreadsheet as data.
You
So
are a modern man. That's for sure.
I like data. I appreciate data. I see this series kind of as a database, so it made sense to keep a database on this stuff. I'm very technically savvy. Um, I when I was a kid, I taught myself how to do web pages when I was a kid.
Oh
So
wow.
like a computer is just a
And
tool to me, and
that's way back
yeah.
in the
So
like the 90s, correct?
yeah, well, yeah, 90s, early 2000s. And we were just that back then. We were just writing code in Notepad, just
Whoa.
yeah. So
And then transferring it to the computer?
and then you just take that code and you put it in your website host, and then hopefully it all work. And then if it didn't, you have to go take it apart again and figure out what you did wrong. But nowadays it's so much easier. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do, leverage technology, when I
Yeah.
need to. Even my paintings, I used a projector.
Right on.
I
Like a
did all
camera
the designs
obscura.
on the computer first. So the computer is an important part of my work, even though it's not physically part of the work like it was before. That's how I track everything, and I think that's really important too, because you want to know, how much you're spending on your work, how much your work, how much it costs to make your work versus how much your work costs, because that, for someone to buy, because that's key. And then
That's the formula.
yeah, and that's what I was taught in grad school by one of my professors, and it has stuck with me. A lot of her stuff has stuck with me. Just
Those are good points to know. That's for
yeah, so
sure.
just
I'll
keeping
jot that down.
the work part of your artwork in tidy, and where you stand and everything. So
All right on, man. That's really cool. Thank goodness for those professors that help us along the way. That's for
yes, for sure.
sure. Yeah. Currently, right now, do you have any upcoming maybe like virtual shows or anything like that
No,
going
I don't
on?
think so. I might start applying for shows in the fall. I think
Okay,
maybe in the
cool.
fall or the winter, and see
What
where that
happens?
goes. But yeah, probably at least until the fall. I'm gonna at least do two more pieces
Exciting. That's for
before
sure.
I do that. So I think those will be entitled Yin, and the other one will be Yang. So
Huh. Okay,
I'm playing
looking
with the
forward.
Chinese
Yes, that's for
mythology
sure.
a little bit. I don't know why. I
It's
decided, since I
interesting
did the four
mythology.
directions, I might as well do the
Yeah, why not?
so
Why not? That's super. I think it's super cool because I do like Chinese and Japanese mythology,
yeah,
partly because I got into anime myself, and it's just very interesting to learn that. It could also be because it's outside of my culture, so it's like brand new, It's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, what? This number means this over there in that culture because it means bad luck over here. You know what I mean?
yeah. And you should take every opportunity to experience a culture, even if it's game shows. And like I've been to Japan a few times, and you learn something about people by watching their TV. So like I think it's good to sit through some subtitles. Like it'll make you
True.
better. Like
Right. Yes, that's
that.
very true.
Those little experiences could change your perspective. So yeah.
Well, definitely, Alan. Thank you for meeting with me today, for allowing us to interview you. It's very awesome hearing just how you produce your work and the concepts behind it, where you pull your inspiration from, and even hearing some of the struggles that you've had to kind of go through, your frustrations, and how you overcame them. That's
Yeah.
really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. This is really great. So